I will never forget the sound of that phone call. It came at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday night, cutting through the din of clattering dishes and shouted orders in the back of the restaurant where I was working my second shift of the day. The rain outside hammered against the windows like it was trying to break through, and I had just dropped off a tray of dirty plates when my phone vibrated in my apron pocket. The number on the screen was from California, area code 714. I didn't recognize it, but something in my gut told me to answer. Ma'am, this is security at Disneyland Resort. We have your son, Adam, here with us. He was found alone near the exit gates about 2 hours ago. The tray I was holding slipped from my hands and crashed to the floor, sending shards of ceramic skittering across the tile. My manager turned to glare at me, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what I was hearing. Adam was supposed to be safe. He was supposed to be with my mother, Eleanor, and my sister Jessica, enjoying the trip I had paid for but couldn't attend because I needed to work these extra shifts to cover the cost of it all. What do you mean he was found alone? My voice came out as a whisper, then grew louder. Where is my mother? Where is my sister? Ma'am, we've been trying to contact the adults he was with, but we haven't been able to reach anyone. Can you come pick him up, or should we contact local authorities? I told them I would call them back in 5 minutes. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely hold the phone as I dialed my mother's number. It rang 4 times before she answered, and when she did, I could hear laughter and music in the background, the unmistakable sounds of people having a good time. Sarah, honey, what's wrong? You sound upset. Her voice was light, carefree, as if she hadn't just abandoned my 7-year-old son at the most famous theme park in the world. Mom, where is Adam? There was a pause, and then I heard her say something to someone else, her hand partially covering the phone. When she came back, her tone had shifted to one of mild annoyance. Oh, sweetie, you're overreacting again. Jessica and the kids were so tired, we just didn't notice he wasn't with us when we left. I'm sure he's fine. The park has people for this sort of thing. I felt something inside me crack. You didn't notice? You didn't notice that my son, a 7-year-old child, wasn't with you when you left? Jessica's voice came through the line then, sharp and defensive. Sarah, calm down. My kids never get lost because I actually watch them properly. Maybe if you had come on this trip yourself instead of making us take responsibility for Adam, this wouldn't have happened. He probably needs better discipline anyway. I heard my mother laugh, a sound that used to comfort me but now felt like glass scraping against my skin. Jessica's right, dear. You've always been so sensitive about everything. We'll pick him up in the morning. It's not like anything bad happened. I hung up without saying another word. My whole body felt cold despite the sweltering heat of the restaurant kitchen. The cook was staring at me. My manager was walking over with an irritated expression, but all I could see was my little boy, alone and scared, wondering why the people who were supposed to love him had simply walked away. I called Disneyland back and told them I was coming. I didn't care that it was a 7-hour drive. I didn't care that I would lose this job for walking out in the middle of my shift. I didn't care about anything except getting to my son. I asked them to put him on the phone, and when I heard his small, trembling voice say, Mommy, they left me. Grandma and Aunt Jessica just left. Something fundamental shifted inside me. The guilt I had carried for years, the obligation I had felt to keep the peace, the desperate need for my mother's approval, all of it evaporated in that single moment. I asked the security officer to let me speak to his supervisor. When she came on the line, I explained that I needed them to pull the security footage from the exit gates for the past 3 hours. I needed to see exactly what had happened. She hesitated, citing privacy concerns, but when I explained that my mother was a licensed foster care volunteer in our state and that I might need this evidence, she agreed to make copies for me. I threw my apron on the hook, grabbed my purse, and walked out of that restaurant into the pouring rain. My car was old and the heater barely worked, but I didn't care. I drove through the night, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles went white. The rain followed me for the first 100 miles, then gave way to clear skies and an endless stretch of highway illuminated by moonlight. I arrived at Disneyland just before 7 in the morning. The parking lot was already starting to fill with families eager to start their magical day. I felt like I was walking through a nightmare as I made my way to the security office. Adam was sitting on a small couch, still clutching a Mickey Mouse plush toy that one of the staff members must have given him. His face was pale, his eyes red from crying, and when he saw me, he ran into my arms so hard that we both nearly fell over. I'm sorry, Mommy. I'm sorry I got lost. I tried to keep up, but they were walking so fast, and then the doors closed, and I couldn't find them. I held him and told him over and over that it wasn't his fault, that he had done nothing wrong, that I was here now and I would never let anything like this happen again. The security supervisor, a kind woman named Maria, handed me a USB drive. I really shouldn't be doing this, she said quietly, but I have kids too. What I saw on those cameras made me sick. You take care of that boy. I watched the footage in my car before we left the parking lot. I needed to see it, needed to understand exactly what had happened. The timestamp showed 6:48 p.m. the previous evening. The cameras captured everything in stark, undeniable detail. There was my mother, Eleanor, walking hand in hand with Jessica's 2 children, ages 9 and 11. Jessica was right beside them, laughing at something one of the kids had said. And behind them, running to keep up, was Adam. He was calling out to them. I could see his mouth moving, see the desperation in his small body as he tried to catch up. They walked through the exit gates, and the crowd surged around them. Adam got blocked by a family pushing a double stroller. He tried to go around, but by the time he made it through, the automatic doors had closed. He stood there for a moment, confused, and then I watched his face crumple as he realized he had been left behind. The footage continued. I watched as my mother and Jessica walked to their car in the parking lot, both of them checking their phones, Jessica taking a selfie with her children in front of a Disney sign. Neither of them looked back. Neither of them seemed to notice or care that Adam wasn't with them. The timestamp on their car leaving the parking lot was 7:03 p.m. Adam wasn't reported to security until 7:52 p.m., after a cast member found him crying near the now-closed entrance gates. I sat in that parking lot with my sleeping son in the back seat and I made a decision. I wasn't going to be silent anymore. I wasn't going to make excuses for them anymore. I wasn't going to pretend that this was normal, that this was acceptable, that this was just how families were. My mother had controlled me my entire life, had made me feel like I was never good enough, never grateful enough, never worthy of her love unless I was useful to her. Jessica had been her golden child, the one who could do no wrong, and I had been the emotional support system, the free babysitter, the ATM machine they could tap whenever they needed money. When Adam woke up a few hours later, we went to a diner and I let him order whatever he wanted. Pancakes with chocolate chips, a milkshake, bacon, eggs, the works. While he ate, I called my bank and canceled the credit card I had given my mother for emergencies. I canceled the automatic transfer that sent her $500 every month. I called the airline and changed the return tickets that were in her name to my name only. She had told me they were taking a 7-day trip. I gave them 3 days. The messages started coming in that afternoon. First from my mother, confused about why her card wasn't working. Then from Jessica, angry that I had canceled their hotel reservation for the remaining nights. I didn't respond. I just took screenshots of every text, every voicemail, every nasty comment they posted in the family group chat. Jessica posted on her Instagram that evening a photo of her and her kids at the hotel pool with the caption, "Nothing better than quality family time. Some people just don't understand the meaning of gratitude." I took a screenshot of that too. Over the next 3 weeks, things escalated. My mother called me 67 times. I know because I kept a log. Jessica sent me over 200 text messages, each one more vicious than the last. They told everyone in the family that I had gone crazy, that I had overreacted to a simple mistake, that I was jealous of Jessica's perfect life and her successful influencer career. They said I was mentally unstable, that I was an unfit mother, that Adam had probably wandered off on his own and I was just looking for someone to blame. I documented all of it. Every call, every text, every post, every lie. I took Adam to a child psychologist, Dr. Patricia Chen, who specialized in childhood trauma. She spoke with him for an hour while I sat in the waiting room, and when she came out, her face was serious. She said that Adam was showing signs of abandonment anxiety, that he was having nightmares about being left behind, that he needed consistent therapy and a stable, safe environment. She wrote everything in a detailed report, which she gave me a copy of. Then I did something I had never done before. I spent money on myself. Not a lot, but enough. I hired a lawyer, a young man named Mark Davidson who had a reputation for taking on family law cases that other attorneys wouldn't touch. I walked into his office on a Tuesday afternoon with 3 folders full of evidence, the USB drive from Disneyland, and a determination that must have been written all over my face. Mark listened to my story without interrupting. He watched the security footage, read through the text messages, reviewed Dr. Chen's report on Adam. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and studied me for a long moment. "Your mother is a licensed foster care volunteer, correct? And your sister is a parenting influencer with sponsorship deals?" I nodded. "Then we're not just going to file a complaint. We're going to make sure this never happens to another child." He paused, then added, "This is going to get ugly. Your family is going to fight back. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about Adam's face when I had picked him up from Disneyland. I thought about all the years I had spent trying to earn my mother's love, all the money I had given them, all the times I had put their needs before mine and Adam's. I thought about the fact that they hadn't even apologized, hadn't even acknowledged that what they did was wrong. "I'm not just prepared," I told him. "I'm counting on it." The first step was quiet. Mark sent a carefully worded email to several parenting blogs and local news outlets, anonymously, about a concerning incident at Disneyland involving a child being abandoned by a licensed foster care volunteer. He included just enough detail to make it newsworthy, but not enough to identify anyone specifically. Within 48 hours, 3 different blogs had picked up the story, discussing the dangers of distracted caregiving and the importance of supervision at crowded venues. Then we escalated. Mark contacted the California Department of Social Services with a formal complaint about my mother's fitness to serve as a foster care volunteer. He included the security footage, the timeline of events, and the text messages where she had laughed off the incident. He also filed a complaint with the licensing board that oversaw her volunteer certification. Simultaneously, we reached out to several of Jessica's major sponsors. We sent them copies of the security footage and her Instagram post from that same evening, the one where she had been at the hotel pool while my son was still traumatized. We pointed out that Jessica had been entrusted with a child's safety and had failed, then had mocked the situation on social media. We asked if this was the kind of person they wanted, representing their family-friendly brands. The response was swift and devastating. 3 of Jessica's sponsors dropped her within a week. The parenting blogs that had initially run the anonymous story started digging deeper. One of them, a woman named Laura Mendez who did investigative journalism, contacted Mark directly. After several conversations and a review of our evidence, she asked if we would be willing to go on the record. I said yes. The article came out on a Friday morning. Laura had done her research well, interviewing Disneyland staff, reviewing public records about my mother's foster care history, and documenting Jessica's rise as a parenting influencer. The headline read, "The Influencer Who Couldn't Influence Her Own Behavior, A Story of Abandoned Trust." It included the security footage, which Laura had obtained permission to use from Disneyland after explaining the public interest angle. It showed everything. My mother and Jessica walking away, Adam trying desperately to catch up. The moment he realized he had been left behind. The article went viral. Within 24 hours, it had been shared over 50,000 times. Jessica's Instagram comments section exploded with criticism. Her remaining sponsors began distancing themselves. Local news stations picked up the story. My mother's foster care organization issued a statement saying they were conducting an internal investigation. My phone rang constantly, but I only answered calls from Mark or Laura. Everyone else went to voicemail. The messages from my mother and Jessica changed in tone. They were no longer angry. They were panicked. Eleanor called me 30 times in one day, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails begging me to fix this, to tell people it was all a misunderstanding. Jessica sent me a long text message saying that I was destroying her life, that she had worked so hard to build her career, that I was jealous and vindictive and cruel. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I sent all the new messages to Mark, who added them to our growing file. 2 weeks after the article was published, Child Protective Services contacted me. They wanted to conduct their own investigation into the incident. I welcomed it. I provided them with everything. The security footage, Dr. Chen's report, the timeline of events, the text messages, the voicemails. They interviewed Adam with a trained child welfare specialist present. They interviewed the Disneyland security staff. They reviewed my mother's foster care records and discovered that this wasn't the first time concerns had been raised about her judgment, though previous complaints had been minor and had been resolved with additional training. The investigator, a woman named Sandra Williams, called me after she had completed her review. "Miss Parker, I want you to know that your complaint is being taken very seriously. The evidence you provided is substantial and deeply concerning. I cannot discuss the specific outcomes of our investigation, but I can tell you that protective measures are being implemented." What she couldn't tell me, but what I found out later through public records, was that my mother's foster care license was being suspended pending a full review. Several of the families she had worked with in the past were being contacted for follow-up interviews. Jessica was not under formal investigation because she wasn't a licensed caregiver, but her reputation was in ruins. The media attention continued. More parenting bloggers wrote about the incident, using it as a cautionary tale about influencer culture and the dangers of prioritizing image over reality. Jessica's follower count dropped by over 30,000 people. Brands that had been in talks with her for future partnerships ghosted her entirely. She eventually deleted her Instagram account and moved to a different state. Through all of this, I focused on Adam. We continued his therapy sessions with Dr. Chen. I reduced my work hours so I could spend more time with him. We developed routines and rituals that helped him feel safe. Every night before bed, I would tell him 3 things. I love you, I will never leave you, and you are safe. It took months, but slowly, gradually, his nightmares became less frequent. His anxiety began to ease. He started smiling more. About 2 months after the article was published, there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw my mother standing there. She looked nothing like the polished, put-together woman I had known my entire life. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes were wrinkled, and she had dark circles under her eyes that suggested she hadn't been sleeping well. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Adam was at school, and I was glad for that. I didn't want him to see this. "Sarah," she said, her voice cracking, "how could you do this to me? I'm your mother. I raised you. I sacrificed everything for you, and this is how you repay me?" I looked at her and felt nothing. No anger, no guilt, no sadness, just a vast emptiness where my love for her used to be. "You didn't sacrifice everything for me, Mom. You made me sacrifice everything for you, and you did the same thing to Adam that you've been doing to me my entire life. You treated him like he didn't matter, like his feelings and his safety were less important than your convenience. It was a mistake. We didn't mean to leave him. You didn't check on him for over 2 hours, Mom. You went back to your hotel. You went to the pool," Jessica posted on Instagram. "Neither of you even noticed he was gone. And when I called you, when I was terrified and desperate, you laughed. You told me I was overreacting. You blamed me for not being there. You didn't apologize. You didn't ask if he was okay. You just made excuses." She started to cry, and once upon a time, those tears would have broken me. I would have rushed to comfort her, would have told her it was okay, would have accepted whatever explanation she gave and moved on because that's what I always did. But not this time. "I've lost everything," she sobbed. "My volunteer position, my reputation, my friends. People cross the street when they see me. Do you know what that feels like?" "Yes," I said quietly. "I know exactly what that feels like. That's how I've felt my entire life around you, like I was never good enough, like I was only valuable when I was useful, like I didn't matter unless I was giving you something you wanted. I love you, Sarah. You're my daughter." "No, Mom. You love what I can do for you. You love having someone you can control, someone who will always say yes, someone who will always put you first, no matter what it costs them. But you don't love me. You don't even know me, because if you did, if you truly loved me, you never would have treated my son the way you did. You never would have treated me the way you have." She reached out as if to touch me, but I stepped back. "I want you to leave now, and I don't want you to come back. I don't want phone calls, I don't want letters, I don't want surprise visits. If you have something you need to say, you can say it through my lawyer. But you are not welcome in my life anymore, and you are definitely not welcome near my son. Sarah, please, I'm your mother. Being my mother isn't an excuse for how you've treated me. It's the reason why it hurts so much." I started to close the door, then paused. "I showed Adam the security footage, Mom. He needed to see it. He needed to know that what happened wasn't his fault, that he didn't do anything wrong. Do you know what he said when he saw you walking away from him?" She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "He said, 'She looks happy.' That's what he said. He watched you leave him behind, and his observation was that you looked happy. That's what you did to my child. So no, I don't regret it. I regret the years I wasted trying to please people who were never going to be pleased. I regret the money I gave them that should have gone to Adam's future. I regret teaching my son, even inadvertently, that love meant accepting poor treatment, but I don't regret standing up. I don't regret fighting back. I don't regret making sure that the world knew what they had done, because maybe, just maybe, it prevented them from doing it to someone else." The other day, Adam came home from school with an assignment. His teacher had asked the class to write about someone they admired and why. I expected him to write about a superhero or a professional athlete or maybe his favorite teacher. Instead, he wrote about me. He wrote about how I had driven through the night to come get him when he was scared. He wrote about how I had made sure he felt safe and loved every single day since then. He wrote that I was the bravest person he knew because I had stood up for him even when it was hard, even when it meant losing people I loved. I cried when I read it. They were good tears, healing tears, the kind that wash away old pain and make room for new joy. His teacher had written a note at the bottom. "What a beautiful tribute to a wonderful mother. Adam is lucky to have you." I put that paper in a frame and hung it on the wall next to the photo from the amusement park. On days when I doubt myself, when the old guilt tries to creep back in, I look at those two things and remember why I did what I did. I've learned so much over these past 2 years. I've learned that family isn't defined by blood but by behavior. I've learned that forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation, and that you can wish someone well from a distance without letting them back into your life. I've learned that protecting yourself isn't selfish, and that saying no is a complete sentence. I've learned that the people who truly love you will respect your boundaries, and the people who don't respect your boundaries don't truly love you. Most importantly, I've learned that I am enough. I don't need my mother's approval to validate my worth. I don't need my sister's acceptance to feel complete. I don't need the extended family's understanding to know I did the right thing. I am enough exactly as I am, flaws and all, struggles and all, imperfect and human and doing the best I can. And that is more than sufficient. Adam is enough too. He doesn't need to earn love by being perfect or convenient or easy. He doesn't need to shrink himself to make other people comfortable. He doesn't need to accept mistreatment to maintain relationships. He is worthy of love and safety and respect simply because he exists, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure he knows that. We talk about boundaries now, Adam and I. We talk about what healthy relationships look like, about how people who love you treat you, about the difference between making mistakes and choosing to cause harm. These are conversations I never had as a child, conversations I wish someone had had with me. I'm giving him the tools I never had, the awareness I had to learn the hard way, the confidence to stand up for himself that took me 30 years to develop. He's going to be okay. Better than okay. He's going to grow up knowing his worth, setting healthy boundaries, choosing relationships that add to his life rather than drain from it. He's going to break the cycle that has probably run through my family for generations, the cycle of manipulation and guilt and conditional love. And when he's older, when he has children of his own perhaps, he'll know exactly how to love them unconditionally, because that's what I'm teaching him now. There are moments when I imagine what my life would have been like if I had never gotten that phone call from Disneyland, if somehow, miraculously, Adam hadn't gotten separated from them. If I had never seen that security footage, never witnessed with my own eyes just how little my son mattered to them, would I still be working multiple jobs to fund their lifestyle? Would I still be answering every phone call, responding to every demand, sacrificing myself on the altar of their approval? Probably, and the thought terrifies me. That phone call, as horrible and traumatic as it was, saved us both. It forced me to see what I had been avoiding for so long. It gave me the wake-up call I needed. It pushed me to finally choose us over them, safety over obligation, truth over false peace. In a twisted way, my mother did me a favor by showing me so clearly, so undeniably, what she truly was. She took off the mask, and I finally saw her without the distortion of my desperate need for her love. I wonder sometimes if she thinks about that night. If she lies awake remembering the moment she walked away from her grandson without a backward glance. If she feels any genuine remorse for what she did, or if she's managed to rewrite the story in her mind to make herself the victim. I'll never know, and I've come to terms with the fact that I don't need to know. Her thoughts, her feelings, her version of events, none of it matters anymore. What matters is the truth, and the truth is documented, time-stamped, undeniable. Last week, I ran into one of my mother's old friends at the grocery store. She saw me and quickly looked away, pretending she hadn't. I could have let it go, could have done my shopping and left, but I was tired of being treated like I was the villain in this story. So I walked over to her and said hello. She looked uncomfortable, trapped, and reluctantly acknowledged me. I suppose you've heard Eleanor's version of what happened, I said calmly. I just want you to know that there's security footage of the whole thing. If you're ever curious about the truth, about what actually happened to my 7-year-old son, I'd be happy to share it with you, but I understand if you'd rather believe your friend. People usually do. I walked away before she could respond. I don't know if she'll ever ask to see the footage, and honestly, it doesn't matter. What matters is that I stood up for myself, stated the truth, and didn't shrink away in shame from someone else's judgment. The old Sarah would have avoided that encounter, would have scurried to a different aisle, would have felt embarrassed and guilty. The new Sarah looks people in the eye and refuses to carry shame that isn't hers. That's the gift I've given myself through all of this. The freedom from unearned shame, the liberation from guilt that was never mine to bear. The understanding that other people's choices are their responsibility, not mine. My mother chose to walk away from Adam. Jessica chose to mock the situation and blame me. They made those choices, and the consequences belong to them. I sleep well at night now. My dreams are no longer haunted by anxious scenarios of trying to please the unpleasable or fix the unfixable. I don't wake up in a panic, mentally calculating how much money I can send or what favor I can do to keep the peace. I sleep deeply, peacefully, with my son safe in the next room and my conscience clear. That peace is worth more than any relationship they could offer me. There's a quote I read somewhere that has stuck with me. You can't heal in the same environment that made you sick. That's what I had to do. I had to remove myself and Adam from the toxic environment of my family's dysfunction. I had to create physical, emotional, and legal distance. I had to stop drinking the poison and wondering why I felt sick. And once I did, once I stepped away from the constant chaos and criticism and demands, I could finally begin to heal. The healing is ongoing. It's not a destination but a journey, with good days and bad days, progress and setbacks, moments of strength and moments of weakness. But every day I'm a little bit stronger, a little bit more certain of my decisions, a little bit more at peace with the life I've chosen. Every day Adam grows more confident, more secure, more joyful. Every day we build our little family of 2 into something solid and safe and full of love. I've started writing my story down, not for publication but for Adam. I want him to have a record of what happened and why I made the decisions I did. I want him to understand, when he's old enough to fully grasp it, that sometimes love means making hard choices, that sometimes protecting someone requires courage and sacrifice, that sometimes the right thing to do is also the most difficult thing to do. I want him to know that his mother fought for him, that she chose him, that she would do it all again in a heartbeat. Because I would. If I could go back to that rainy night 2 years ago, knowing everything that would happen, all the pain and conflict and loss, I would still make the same choice. I would still drive through the night to get my son. I would still refuse to accept their excuses. I would still pursue justice with every tool at my disposal. I would still walk away from my family of origin to protect my family of choice. Every single time, I would choose us. That's what real love is. Not the conditional, manipulative version my mother taught me. Not the performative, image-obsessed version Jessica displayed on social media. Real love is showing up. Real love is protecting the vulnerable. Real love is choosing someone's well-being over your own comfort. Real love is standing between your child and harm, even when the harm comes from people you once trusted. Real love is saying, "Not my child," and meaning it with every fiber of your being. I am my son's safe harbor. I am his advocate, his protector, his constant. And he is my purpose, my joy, my reason for becoming brave. Together, we are healing. Together, we are building something new. Together, we are proof that you can survive a toxic family and come out stronger on the other side. The sun is setting as I write this, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the same colors that were behind us in that photo at the amusement park. Adam is in his room doing homework, occasionally calling out to ask me questions about his science project. The house is quiet, peaceful, safe. This is my life now. This is what I fought for. This is what I won, and I would do it all again. I look at the calendar and realize it's been exactly 2 years since that phone call. 2 years since my world shattered and reformed into something unrecognizable. 2 years since I became someone I never thought I could be. Someone who stands up for herself. Someone who refuses to be a victim. Someone who knows her worth. 2 years since I saved my son, and, in doing so, saved myself. Tomorrow, Adam and I are going to celebrate. Not the anniversary of the trauma, but the anniversary of the choice. The choice to say no more. The choice to demand better. The choice to walk away from people who didn't deserve us and toward a future we're building together. We're going to his favorite restaurant, and then we're going to watch the sunset from the park where we feed the ducks every Sunday. We're going to talk about how far we've come and dream about where we're going. Because we have a future now, Adam and I. A future that belongs to us, that we're shaping with our own hands, that reflects our values and our love for each other. A future free from manipulation and guilt and impossible expectations. A future where we can breathe, where we can be ourselves, where we can love each other without conditions or limits or fear. I never wanted to be the kind of mother who had to fight battles like this. I never imagined I would have to choose between my child and my family of origin. I never thought I'd be the subject of a viral article or have to hire a lawyer to protect my son from his own grandmother. But life doesn't always give us the choices we want. Sometimes it gives us impossible choices, and we have to find the courage to make them anyway. I made mine, and I'm living with the consequences, the beautiful, painful, liberating consequences. I lost a mother who never really loved me. I lost a sister who only valued me for what I could provide. I lost an extended family that prioritized image over truth. But I gained something infinitely more precious. I gained myself. I gained my freedom. I gained a future where my son will never have to write his own version of this story because I broke the cycle for him. That's my legacy. Not the drama, not the conflict, not the public spectacle. My legacy is the little boy in the next room, safe and loved and free from the dysfunction that plagued my own childhood. My legacy is the courage to say enough. My legacy is the proof that you can escape, that you can heal, that you can build something beautiful from the ashes of something toxic. As I sit here in my quiet, peaceful home, with my son's laughter echoing down the hallway, I feel something I never felt in all those years of trying to earn my mother's love. I feel content. I feel proud. I feel free. And I feel, for the first time in my life, like I am exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, living exactly the life I'm supposed to be living. This is my happy ending. Not perfect, not without scars, not without costs. But mine. Authentically, genuinely, wholly mine. And that makes it more valuable than anything else could ever be. I don't feel bad about what's happened to you. I feel like I finally did what I should have done years ago. I protected my son. I closed the door and locked it. I heard her standing there for a few more minutes, crying, but eventually she left. I watched through the window as she got into her car and drove away. I never saw her again in person. Jessica tried once too, about a month later. She came to my workplace, cornered me in the parking lot, and launched into a tirade about how I had ruined her life, destroyed her career, turned everyone against her. She screamed that I was jealous, that I had always been jealous of her, that I couldn't stand to see her succeed. She said that if I had just kept my mouth shut and dealt with it like a normal person, none of this would have happened. I let her finish. Then I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen recording I had been making of her entire rant. "Jessica," I said calmly, "if you contact me again, if you come near me or my son again, I will file a restraining order and I will use this video as evidence of harassment. You made choices. You chose to walk away from a 7-year-old child. You chose to mock the situation on social media. You chose to blame everyone except yourself. Those were your choices, and the consequences are yours to deal with. Now leave me alone." She stared at me in shock. I think it was the first time in her life that I had stood up to her. The first time I hadn't backed down or apologized or tried to smooth things over. She opened her mouth as if to say something else, then closed it and walked away. The legal aspect of everything took about 8 months to fully resolve. My mother's foster care license was permanently revoked. The Department of Social Services issued a formal finding that she had demonstrated poor judgment and a lack of appropriate concern for child safety. It went on her permanent record, which meant she could never work with children in any official capacity again. The civil case was more complicated. Mark filed a lawsuit on behalf of Adam for negligence and emotional distress. My mother's lawyer tried to argue that it was an honest mistake, that there was no malicious intent, that the damages were being exaggerated, but the security footage was damning, and Dr. Chen's testimony about Adam's ongoing trauma was powerful. We settled out of court for an amount that would cover Adam's therapy for the next 10 years and establish a college fund for him. My mother had to liquidate most of her savings to pay it. Jessica lost everything she had built. Her influencer career was over. Her sponsorships were gone. Her reputation was destroyed. The last I heard, she had moved to another state and was working in retail, living with a roommate because she couldn't afford her own place anymore. Part of me felt a small twinge of satisfaction at that, though I tried not to dwell on it. Revenge wasn't my goal. Protection was. Justice was. Through all of this, I changed too. I started therapy of my own with a counselor who specialized in family trauma and codependency. Her name was Dr. Rebecca Stone, and she helped me understand patterns that had been set in my childhood. She helped me see that my mother had raised me to be compliant, to prioritize everyone else's needs over my own, to equate love with sacrifice. She helped me understand that setting boundaries wasn't selfish or cruel, it was necessary. I learned to say no. I learned that I didn't owe anyone an explanation for my decisions. I learned that protecting my son and myself wasn't something I needed to apologize for. I learned that I could be a good person and still refuse to let people treat me badly. These lessons didn't come easily. There were days when I felt overwhelmed by guilt, when I questioned whether I had done the right thing, when I wondered if I had taken things too far. But then I would look at Adam, and I would see how he was healing. I would see him laughing again, playing with friends, sleeping through the night without nightmares. I would hear him say, "I love you, Mommy," without that undertone of fear that had been there before, that worry that love was conditional and could be taken away at any moment. And I knew I had made the right choice. The extended family mostly sided with my mother. Aunts and uncles I had known my whole life called me cruel and vindictive. Cousins I had grown up with unfriended me on social media and spread rumors about me being mentally unstable. There was a family reunion that year that I wasn't invited to, though I heard about it through mutual friends. Apparently, my mother played the victim beautifully, painting herself as a woman who had made one small mistake and had been punished beyond reason by her ungrateful daughter. I didn't try to defend myself to any of them. The people who mattered, the people who truly cared about me and Adam, had reached out privately to offer their support. A few cousins who had their own complicated relationships with my mother sent me messages thanking me for speaking up. One of them told me that seeing me set boundaries had given her the courage to do the same thing with her own toxic parent. That message meant more to me than any family reunion ever could. I changed jobs too. I found a position that paid better and had more reasonable hours. It meant I could spend evenings with Adam, help him with his homework, have dinner together as a family of 2. We developed new traditions. Friday night was pizza and movie night. Sunday mornings we would go to the park and feed the ducks. On the 1st of every month, we would pick a new activity to try together, something neither of us had done before. We tried pottery and failed spectacularly, laughed ourselves sick during a cooking class, and discovered that we were both terrible at mini-golf but had fun anyway. I also started doing things for myself. I joined a book club at the local library. I took up running, something I had always wanted to try but never had time for. I made new friends, people who didn't know my history, who liked me for who I was rather than what I could do for them. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was living rather than just surviving. About a year after everything happened, Laura Mendez, the journalist who had written the original article, reached out to ask if I would be willing to do a follow-up interview. She wanted to write about the aftermath, about how Adam and I were doing, about the long-term impacts of speaking up about family trauma. I agreed, with the condition that Adam's face wouldn't be shown and his real name wouldn't be used. The article was published on the anniversary of the Disneyland incident. It was titled, "1 Year Later, A Mother's Fight for Justice and Healing." Laura wrote about Adam's progress in therapy, about the boundaries I had established, about the legal outcomes, and about the cost of standing up to family dysfunction. She included quotes from child welfare experts about the importance of believing children and taking their trauma seriously. She included statistics about how many children are harmed by family members who are trusted caregivers. She made it about more than just my story. She made it about a broader issue. The response was overwhelming. I received hundreds of messages from people sharing their own stories of family trauma, of toxic relationships they had finally escaped, of the courage it took to choose themselves over the family members who had hurt them. I read every single one, and I responded to as many as I could. It was cathartic in a way I hadn't expected. I wasn't alone. Adam wasn't alone. There were thousands of people out there who understood exactly what we had been through. Adam is 9 now, nearly 10. He still sees Dr. Chen once a month, though the sessions are more about maintenance than crisis management at this point. He has friends, does well in school, and has developed a love for science that I encourage as much as possible. He asks about my mother sometimes, usually when he sees other kids with their grandparents. I tell him the truth in age-appropriate terms, that Grandma made choices that weren't safe, and that my job as his mom is to keep him safe, even if that means making hard decisions. He seems to accept this. One day he told me, "I'm glad you came to get me that night, Mom. I knew you would." I was scared, but I knew you would come. That statement, more than anything else, confirmed that I had done the right thing. He knew I would come. He trusted me. That trust was worth more than any relationship with my mother or sister could ever be. I think about that night often, standing in that restaurant kitchen with a phone pressed to my ear and my world falling apart. I think about the moment I decided to stop accepting the unacceptable, to stop making excuses for people who didn't deserve them, to stop putting peace over safety. It wasn't a dramatic moment in the traditional sense. There was no music swelling, no sudden clarity. It was just a quiet realization that I deserved better, and more importantly, that my son deserved better. The scars are still there. I still have moments of doubt, still wonder if I was too harsh, still feel guilty even though I know intellectually that I have nothing to feel guilty about. Therapy helps with that, Doctor. Stone reminds me that guilt is a tool that manipulative people use, and that feeling guilty about protecting my child is a sign of how deeply my mother's manipulation ran, not a sign that I did anything wrong. I don't have a relationship with my mother or Jessica anymore, and I've accepted that I never will again. There are times when that hurts, usually on holidays or birthdays, times when I'm supposed to have family around me. But then I look at the life I've built, the peace I've found, the joy that exists in my little family of 2, and I know that what I've lost doesn't compare to what I've gained. Last month, Adam and I went to an amusement park. It was his idea. He wanted to prove to himself that he could enjoy it, that the trauma of Disneyland hadn't ruined all theme parks for him. I was nervous, checking on him constantly, making sure he stayed close, but he was fine, better than fine. He rode every ride he was tall enough for, ate too much cotton candy, and won a stuffed dragon at one of the game booths. As we were leaving, he took my hand and said, "This was fun, Mom. I'm glad we came, and I'm glad it was just us." Just us. The phrase settled into my heart like a benediction. Yes, it was just us, but just us was enough. Just us was everything. I think about the woman I was 2 years ago, the one who worked multiple jobs to fund trips she wasn't invited on, who bent over backwards to earn love that was never freely given, who taught her son by example that accepting mistreatment was normal. I don't recognize her anymore. I don't want to be her anymore. That woman was surviving. This woman, the one I am now, is living. I won't pretend that everything is perfect. There are still hard days. There are still moments when I question my decisions, when I wonder if I could have handled things differently, when I miss the idea of having a family even if I don't miss the reality of the family I actually had. But those moments are becoming fewer and farther between, and they're overshadowed by the good days, the peaceful days, the days when I wake up and realize that I'm no longer afraid. I'm no longer afraid of phone calls bringing bad news. I'm no longer afraid of saying no. I'm no longer afraid of putting my son's needs first, or even putting my own needs first when necessary. I'm no longer afraid of being called selfish or cruel or ungrateful by people who never appreciated me in the first place. I'm no longer afraid of the consequences of standing up for myself, because I've learned that those consequences are nowhere near as painful as the consequences of staying silent. The truth is, I spent 30 years of my life trying to earn my mother's love, and the moment I stopped trying was the moment I realized I never needed it in the first place. What I needed was to love myself, to believe that I was worth protecting, to understand that my value didn't come from how useful I was to other people. What I needed was to break the cycle, to make sure that Adam grew up knowing he was loved unconditionally, not for what he could provide, but for who he was. That night in the rain, driving to Disneyland with fury and fear warring in my chest, I made a promise to myself and to my son. I promised that we would never be abandoned again, not by others and not by each other. I promised that I would fight for him with everything I had, even if it meant burning bridges and facing consequences and standing alone against people I had once loved. I promised that his safety and well-being would always come first, no matter what. I kept that promise, and in keeping it, I found something I hadn't expected. I found myself. I found strength I didn't know I had. I found peace in places I didn't think to look for it. I found that sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to walk away, when to say enough, when to choose yourself, and the people who truly matter over the people who only want to use you. My mother will never understand what she did wrong. Jessica will always see herself as the victim of my vindictiveness. The extended family will probably never forgive me for airing the family's dirty laundry. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Their opinions don't define me anymore. Their approval isn't something I need or want. I've built a life that doesn't require their validation, and that life is so much richer and fuller than anything I had when I was still trying to make them happy. There's a photo on my refrigerator now, taken at the amusement park last month. Adam is grinning at the camera, his arm around my shoulders, the stuffed dragon clutched in his other hand. Behind us, you can see the lights of the Ferris wheel and the setting sun painting the sky orange and pink. We look happy. We look free. And we are. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how everything happened, if I wish I had handled things differently, if I think I went too far. I tell them the truth. I don't have a single regret. Could I have been quieter about it? Could I have kept it private, handled it within the family, avoided the public spectacle? Sure. But that's what I had been doing my entire life. Keeping quiet, handling things, avoiding confrontation. And where had it gotten me? It had gotten my son abandoned at Disneyland while the people who were supposed to love him laughed and took selfies. So, no.